The Batman Arkham series is known for many things: its boss fights, gameplay, storyline. However, something that goes a little unnoticed is the sheer amount of detail in the game. A lot of it is actually pretty disturbing or dark at the very least. There's a lot of disturbing details in the game that I wanted to talk about and go into more detail with. Here are 10 disturbing details from the Arkham games. Before we get started, if you want to subscribe, comment, leave a like, shut up and do it. Anyway, let's move on. The Seagate amusement park at a glance looks like a typical creepy amusement park set in Gotham. However, there's a lot more to it that meets the eye, especially on how the park was created. The audio tape set around the park reveals that a man named Edward Burke wanted to create the amusement park for his sick daughter, Katie. Joker and Harley then disguised themselves and went to Edward to quote-unquote help him create the park. They also referred his daughter to Penelope Young, who was treating his sick daughter. If you don't remember, Penelope Young was the character from Arkham Asylum that created the Titan formula, so she may have been using that on his daughter here. Anyways, once the park was completed, Joker stopped the treatments for his daughter, which resulted in her dying. Edward now had nothing to live for, and Joker, still disguised, gives him pills to end his life quickly. The final audio tape reveals he takes the pills, but it's not as quick as he imagined. Take a listen.
Katie died before she could see the park. Jack blamed me and said I should never have taken her to Gotham General in the first place. But how was I to know? He told Dr. Young to triple the dosage of her alternative meds, but that only seemed to make things worse. She died last week, and the pain is unbearable. Dr. Quinzel says it won't get better. She says the pain will just get worse, and that there's no point in going on. She's right. She always is. I signed the park over to Jack, and my only hope is that he does something inspiring with it. As for me, I'll be with Katie soon. These pills Jack gave me will make sure of that. They're supposed to be painless.
You can see a skeleton on the bed as well. It's unknown if Penelope Young willingly worked with Joker and Harley or was forced to. I imagine it's the latter because this might be too far for her, but it's possible that she wanted to desperately test the Titan even if it meant the death of a little girl. I'll let you take that as you will. Let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. Keeping on with the Seagate amusement park, there's another disturbing detail about it. Looking around the park, you will see advertisements of a man with a starfish on his head. Most comic book heads will know this as Starro the Conqueror's starfish he summons that latches on to people for him to control. Now, knowing this, if you go into the vent here and look inside, you will find Starro inside some kind of tank, alive and well. The implications and questions here are endless. Did Joker and Harley bring Starro here themselves and manage to make him control this person with the starfish? Did Edward Burke know about this? Is Starro controlling the person, or is Starro being trapped against his will? We don't know any of this, but what we do know is that this man here is trapped against his will, performing for a park essentially owned by the Joker, which means they could very well be dead at this point. It's eerie to think about, but you answer those questions in any way you see fit. Anyone who's played Arkham Asylum likely knows about Dead Man's Point, considering it's an area you have to traverse through in the game. The reason it's called Dead Man's Point, however, is because inmates go there to commit suicide, jumping off the cliff. Very dark, and it brings up some questions. How easy is it for an inmate to get there on the island? Considering it has its own name, it has to have happened one too many times. Also, Batman's Batcave is built right next to the area. Could he have possibly built it there just to be near that dangerous part of the island? Batman did mention he saved someone once that attempted to jump off from there. It's all pretty dark considering how crappy of a facility Arkham has to be if people are going there to end their lives when the place should try to rehabilitate these people. Most of Batman's villains are very violent, however they all seem to focus more on killing their victims and generally keeping it in that kind of area. Mad Hatter, however, is one of the exceptions. Mad Hatter in the comics and in most versions of him is more than just a murderer. There's always been heavy implication that he is a rapist, sexually assaulting his victims. The Arkham series is no exception to this. In his side mission in Arkham Origins, he kidnaps a woman who he thinks is Alice. Once you defeat Jervis and save her, she has this to say.
Don't worry, you're safe now. The police are on their way. Everything's going to be all right.
No, it's not.
There's a lot of theories as to what Jervis may have done to her. I saw one where people said he gouged her eyes out and replaced them, considering they don't ever move or blink, but the heavy implication here is that she was sexually assaulted just going off her response saying it won't be okay, as Hatter has done something to her that can't be reversed. Disgusting to think about, and makes you think if some of Batman's villains can really be redeemed after doing things like this. Quincy Sharp, the former corrupt Gotham mayor that worked with Hugo Strange to push his evil agenda. Sharp has schizophrenia, which Strange took advantage of, giving him serums that made Sharp act like a puppet to Strange, making him think Strange was his master. Once he was exposed in Arkham City, his fate was relatively unknown, until Arkham Knight that is, where one of the Riddler stories gives us a conclusion to him. It reveals that in prison, he started having hallucinations about Hugo Strange. It revealed that he was willing to do anything for Hugo. The hallucination told him to grab his bed sheets and tie it to the light fixture on the ceiling, implying that he hangs himself. And once again encapsulates how crappy of a facility Arkham is to not treat these kind of things for their patients, or wherever Quincy was being held. Quincy Sharp's legacy was not only tarnished, but his ending is seemingly forgotten, as this is something many people can miss. There were quite a few villains we never got to see in the Arkham series, but we did learn about some of them and their fates. One of them was the Ratcatcher, a villain in the Batman Rogues Gallery that has the ability to control rats. While never present in the games, we saw his equipment in each game at various locations, and in Arkham City, we did learn that he was in there. Scanning one of the Riddler stories of his advertisement, it reveals what happened to him in Arkham City. Essentially, he was trying to lay low and keep to himself, trying not to get in any type of altercation. This proved to be futile, however, since the end of the story reveals that the Penguin found out where he was and dragged him into the museum to be fed by Tiny the Shark. We then never hear about him in Arkham Knight, so it can be assumed that he was killed by the shark. I don't really see a way he could have survived that. However, in the Arkham Genesis comic books that takes place between City and Night, it reveals that Ratcatcher did survive. However, the Arkham Knight finds him and kills him anyway, electrocuting him to death. It's a big discussion on whether the comics are canon or not, but regardless, he still dies no matter what, both in cruel ways, either being fed to a shark or electrocuted to death by Jason. Sad way to go for Otis Flanagan. This next one captures one of Joker's more cruel and irredeemable acts. After taking down Deacon Blackfire while Batman is still hallucinating about the Joker, you'll hear Joker make this comment.
You think this Blackfire's a real priest, Batsy? It's just, I owe Gotham Church an apology for that incident with the hydrochloric holy water. Oh, that was one hell of a baptism.
Now, this has a lot more implications than you would think at first. Joker mentions holy water. If the Gotham Church has holy water, then it could be assumed that it's a Catholic church, meaning that the Joker didn't kill a bunch of adults. He killed infants, committing infanticide. It's one thing for Joker to kill a bunch of people, but to do it in a place where people sought out for peace and guidance, and not only that, kill children, is just insane to me. This is a perfect example of how subtle the really dark events occurring in this universe presents itself. It would be too much to show this in the game, but telling us in a very subtle way is not only smart, but perhaps even more disturbing, as your mind races on what exactly happened. It makes you ask questions like how many kids did the Joker kill? Truly disturbing. Jason Todd's story in Arkham Knight may be the most horrifying and cruel one he's ever had. Most versions have him dying in one day after the Joker catches him, but here, he's tortured in every way imaginable for over a year in the asylum. In the game, we see small glimpses of what he went through, being branded by Joker and beaten with a crowbar. However, the tie-in comic books reveal and go into detail of what he went through. Now, let me reiterate by saying the comics being canon or not is all in speculation, but it's hard not to believe that some of these events here for sure happened in the games as well. In the comics, Joker handed him over to Harley, who tortured him in the worst ways imaginable, making him believe that Batman gave him the J brand and not Joker. They also made Jason go through hallucinations that made him kill the villain Catman, who was dressed as Batman. She also had a bunch of villains go in and beat Jason in near death, while also making him psychologically tortured throughout it all, making him believe Batman forgot about him. There was also implications that he was sexually assaulted as well. The comics details make it painfully cruel to see, especially when you realize that Jason isn't even an adult, he's still basically a kid. One of the worst fates for Jason Todd, and it's surprising he survived it all. Professor Pig is one of the most deranged characters from Arkham Knight. Outside of his side mission, there are audio tapes to give more insight to his character. The tapes reveal he has a son named Jonas, and the final tape has Professor Pig telling his son about his mother. Essentially, the tape reveals that he found a woman whose name he didn't even know and seemingly took advantage of her, as that is what's heavily implied from the tape. She was then pregnant with his son, and Pig's mother wanted to kill her when she was pregnant because she wasn't perfect, but Pig managed to stop it and told his mother he would try to make the woman perfect, mentioning how the months leading to his birth he would try to sculpt her face into something perfect, which pretty much means she was tortured and kept against her will by him. Once he was born, Pig mentions how he couldn't look upon her spoiled canvas of a face, so he finally murdered her. Extremely dark backstory, the poor woman being essentially kidnapped, taken advantage of, and while pregnant, being tortured physically with someone cutting up her face until her pregnancy, which is many months, and then finally being killed. Very disturbing to think about, and makes you think where his son is now. It's also interesting because these tapes reveal how his mother basically snapped him into becoming insane and becoming Professor Pig. Had he been raised by someone that wasn't evil, who knows if he could have been a better person? We may never know. This one bothers me the most because of how realistic of a situation it is, right? For a Batman villain, this character is a lot more closer to reality than some people think. This final fact is still on the subject of Professor Pig, as I believe he is without a doubt one of the darkest spots in the Arkham universe. In his side mission, you see that he kidnaps a lot of people and turns them into Dollotrons, which are essentially mindless drones that do whatever Pig tells them to do. However, one small detail in the game makes their fates way more disturbing, making it a fate truly worse than death. While fighting them, if you scan them using your detective mode, you can see that they're either nervous or terrified, which means that the victims here can still feel and understand everything that's happening with them, but are unable to do anything. Imagine the feeling of unbearable pain as Pig performs his procedures on you, and to then being used as a toy for the rest of your life. On top of all this, it's said that Pig removes genitalia as well to keep all his Dollotrons one and the same, adding that much more disgust. It's one thing if the victims can't understand or feel the pain they go through, but these victims are. They feel terrified, they feel nervous, and it's likely that they'll never be able to recover from their forms ever again. Those are the 10 disturbing details I have from the Arkham games. If this is a video you liked, let me know so I can do more like it. Have a great day. Leave a like, comment, subscribe if you want, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.